We're going to jump on the Panama Papers bandwagon this week, and I want to spend a few minutes just looking at the murky world of tax planning and tax planners. I thought it'd be a good idea to put the whole thing in perspective, because at the end of the day, life is not about money, but tax planning is about hanging on to as much of your money as you can. As in all things, there are contrary points of view. While we may not agree with them, we have to accept that different points of view exist, and tax planning is all about shades of grey. So what has prompted the discussion of tax planning today? Well, it's all started with the leak of data from Mossack Fonseca, a legal firm based in Panama, and it has shone some light in some very dark corners. The reporting of the incident on radio and television and the interviews with members of the public has led me to the conclusion that most people, and virtually all commentators, do not understand the difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance, with the result that any tax planning is viewed with suspicion. Most tax planning is pretty inoffensive, and most people will do some form of tax planning all the time and don't even realise what they're doing. Back in the 1930s, the principles were established in a case called Duke of Westminster. The principle that was recognised in that case was that everyone can arrange their fares to pay the legal minimum amount of tax. Tax planning covers a broad spectrum, but for these purposes I've divided it into three. As we will see, evasion and mitigation are the easiest forms of tax planning to define. Tax evasion includes strategies which are based on deceit and hiding of information, so that the tax authorities do not realise there is tax to pay. The strategies adopted are clearly contrary to the existing law. At the other end of the spectrum, we have tax mitigation. Now, this is generally where government provides certain tax incentives to change people's behaviour, whether this be paying into pensions or investing into riskier start-up companies under the EIS scheme. Between tax evasion and the government-backed tax mitigation strategies is the area of tax avoidance. Now, I think it's fair to say that whatever government decides to do in terms of tax legislation, people will always try and interpret it to their best advantage. Governments are frequently caught out because they haven't foreseen the consequences of their proposed legislation. This leads to a lack of clarity and many tax cases going to court. Some are won by the taxpayer and some by the revenue. This is not just a UK problem, and the quote you'll see here is from the States. It is also not a new problem, and this quote dates back to 1947. Like tax itself, tax planning is constantly changing. I'm Alan Long from the Long Partnership, making life less taxing.